I just want to say hi and a blessed new year to everybody. Hopefully, one day at a time, we'll be able to get through whatever we got to get through. Keep it that simple and see what happens. Okay. I do want to ask a favor, though. I want to ask that if you don't mind keeping somebody in special in my life in your prayers, okay? Because it's kind of a touchy situation. So thanks. Okay. I'm going to begin by doing the reading from the language of letting go. And actually, the one for today actually worked out perfectly for our talk today. Nurturing self-care. There isn't a guidebook for setting boundaries. Each of us has our own guide in ourselves. If we continue to work at recovery, our boundaries will develop. They will get healthy and sensitive. Ourselves will tell us what we need to know, and we'll love ourselves enough to listen. What do we need to do to take care of ourselves? Listen to the voice inside. What makes you angry? What have you had enough of? What don't you trust? What doesn't feel right? What can't you stand? What makes you uncomfortable? What do you want? What do you need? What don't you want and need? What do you like? What will make you feel good? In recovery, we learn that self-care leads us on the path to God's will and plan for our life. Self-care never leads away from our highest good. It leads towards it. Learn to nurture that voice inside. We can trust ourselves to take care of ourselves. We are wiser than we think. Our guide is within, ever present. Listen to, trust, and nurture that guide. Today, I will affirm that I am a gift to myself and a gift to the universe. Remember that nurturing self-care delivers the gift that's in its highest form. A lot of what we're going to talk about in this series, I'm doing a series called Spirituality and the 12 Steps. And I want to go through this series because I believe very deeply in it. It's a series I started years ago. In fact, ironically, I actually published a little book based on this particular series. And it looks like this. It's called Spirituality and the 12 Steps. I just found my original copy of it. So I'm going to get a bunch of copies made of it. So we'll see what happens with it. But it's just interesting. This series began, believe it or not, way back in 1981. I got to tell you the story behind it. There's always a story, you know that. But anyway, in 1981, I was still a priest, and I was running Starting Point in Philadelphia. Starting Point was 81. They were 4 years old, and I brought a lady to treatment at a rehab in Northeast Philadelphia called Riverside House. I dropped her off for treatment, and after I dropped her off, excuse me, I got a little bit of a thing going on here. I throw a cough drop in here. Okay. After I dropped her off, the director of the program said to me, it was lunchtime, I stayed for lunch. And at 10 of 1, he said to me, why don't you give the lecture at 1 o'clock today? I said, Bill, what should I talk about? He said, talk about spirituality. So I said, okay. So I got up and I talked for 45 minutes. When I finished the talk, excuse me, I'm sorry. Bill came up to me and he said, that was pretty damn good, he said. Why don't you come back once a month and give the same talk? I said, Bill, I'd love to. I have no idea what I said. Bill said, not a problem, I taped it. He gave me a copy of the tape. I played it in my car on the way home. It was pretty good, I got a lot out of it. It's just interesting sometimes how things come into life, how they develop. You don't even know they develop. Because I learned something as regards to this process I want to talk about today, called spirituality, which is the introduction to the step process I want to talk about. But basically, it's interesting how a lot of things come to you. They come into your life. You don't realize that they do. The thing I learned so much from this and from a lot of things I do in my life today is that when you speak from your heart, you speak from your experience, you speak from your pain, from your struggle, you speak from the beauty and things that have happened to you on your path of life. that really in reality, this stuff is real. If you basically sit down and try to plan a talk or memorize it, I always tell the story. When I was a young priest, I used to write my sermons, memorize them, go to the pulpit in church when nobody was there, and I practice them. And I get up on Sunday morning and basically bore people to death. So finally, when I learned in recovery to talk from my heart, it made a hell of a lot more sense. So one of the things I want to share with you today is what I shared way back in 1981, only I put some other spins onto it from my experiences from then. One of the things I've learned is to really get in touch with what I call something called spirituality. I never truly understood this until I began to do my own work. But way back in 1972, I had a nervous breakdown. I was in a hospital. While I was in a hospital as a priest, a doctor said to me, I'm kind of hitting myself. I wish I could remember his name because I consider him one of my teachers in recovery. But he said to me, he said, "Father, I hate to tell you this, but you're spiritually dead." I said, "What do you mean I'm spiritually dead? I'm a priest." He said, "No, you know how to function in a role. But as far as who you are, what you're all about, what's inside of you does not exist. You're an empty shell." I never understood what he was talking about because he said to me, "You're spiritually dead." And I tried to understand what that word spiritual actually meant. What was he talking about? Because to me, spirituality always was religion. And so later on in my life, I learned something. And I learned it from a very interesting person. You know, it's funny, sometimes I go back to 1976 and my first sponsor in my recovery program, Norm. And Norm used to always talk about this word spiritual and spirituality. I never truly listened to him though. And one day, the bells went off in my head and he gave me the definition of spirituality. And he said, "Vince, do you realize that spirituality has nothing to do with religion at all?" I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, the actual word comes from Latin and Greek, and the word means to get in touch with your personal spirit, to come to an awakening or a growth process in your personal spirit." And what I learned as I did a lot of my work since then, and of course, back then when that doctor told me that, I didn't really want to hear any of this stuff. But later on, when I got into recovery and began to work on myself, I realized, you know what? I was empty. I had no sense of who I was as a person. I was spiritually dead because I wasn't in touch with my spirit. I was in touch with my role. I was in touch with the external, but I never got in touch with the internal. And so I learned something, and then it's interesting. I have a copy here that somebody gave to me as a gift. It's a copy of the original big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And you know, it's one of those, you look back and you see some of the things they went through when they put the book together. And what's so beautiful about it is they actually talk about in the book something called a spiritual awakening. I never connected the two together. What they really were talking in the book when I looked at it was to come to an awakening of your personal spirit, to come to a knowledge of yourself, become comfortable being you. And the book tells you, the big book, it says, addicts don't understand any of that. We're too busy beating ourselves up. And so I learned over the course of the journey, one of the reasons why they put the 12 steps together. And I find this so unique that when they actually put this book together, with a lot of sweat, a lot of tears, a lot of fighting, a lot of battling, when you look at the manuscript, you say, oh my God, how did they ever get this done? But I really believe that there was divine intervention, that the higher power had a big part in it and sent them on a journey. So when they put the steps together and the traditions together, the 12 steps in reality are 12 simple spiritual principles that will teach you self-love, self-awareness, self-discovery, a beautiful sense of yourself as a person. And in their wisdom, the first 11 steps are for us only to work on ourselves. I find that so interesting. 11 steps just for us to work on us. And the 12th step says, having had a spiritual awakening, having done your work, then move forward and carry a message. But let the message come from your heart, from your spirit, what makes you the unique individual that you are. And each one of us is a creation of God. Each one of us, it has our own personal spirit. That makes all of us different from each other. So we're different from every aspect of life. I'm different from Al, I'm different from Lisa, I'm different from Dot. We're all connected together. At the same time, we all need each other. So we learn from each person's spirit and develop a sense of what that's really all about. So do me a favor for about maybe a half an hour, if you don't mind. I want you to take whatever you believe, religion-wise, and all of it's good, don't get me wrong, and just put it in a basket for a couple of minutes. And let's just talk about the word spiritual and spirituality, and look at it from that perspective of getting in touch with who I am, my personal spirit, learning how to nurture me and take care of me. And what I have found in my own journey is that once I was able to really begin to understand this concept of spirituality, then all of a sudden, even my religious beliefs got stronger. They developed in different ways, and I could view them from a different point of view. So a lot of growth is taking place as a result of this. And so when I talk about spirituality, I kind of break it down into 4 separate individual sentences. And there are 4 questions. I'm going to ask all of us today what I call the 4 spiritual questions. Number 1, do you love yourself? Do you have a personal relation with yourself as a person? Do you celebrate and enjoy who you are? I never thought in my wildest dreams I'd be saying this, that I truly need to learn how to fall in love with myself. Sounds strange, doesn't it? And yet, think about it for a minute. If I don't love me and have good feelings about myself as a person, how can I honestly share them with others? Again, talking from the heart, from the core, from the center. And so literally one of the most powerful things about spirituality is we have to take time to build a personal relation with ourselves as a person, to get to know us, to get to love us, to get to truly believe in ourselves as individuals. Of course, each one of us is unique. Each one of us has different gifts and different talents. And that's why we all need each other. We learn from each other. We grow from each other. It's all part of the process that we go through. The second spiritual question is, do you like who you are? I kind of put them together. To love yourself and to like yourself is to accept the reality of who you are. Each one of us is exactly who we are supposed to be. We're on a journey, we're on a path. And one of the things I do in therapy when I work with people, because it was done with me, is develop what I call my spiritual path. And later on in the series, I'll show you how to do that. The bottom line is, it's almost like we're on a path. We're taken in different directions. The hardest part of recovery is acceptance of my path, to be open to it, to learn from it, to grow from it. Each one of our paths took us in a lot of different directions. And everything happens for a purpose. It's all part of the journey that we're on. And so each part of our path is the one that we took. And that path, hopefully, moved us and helped us to experience, to learn and grow from it. It's all part of the process we go through in life. The third question is, do you respect and do you honor yourself as a person? I always got a kick out of this one. Self-respect. I've learned over the years, it's so easy to get respect from others. People can tell you all kinds of wonderful things about yourself, and they thank you for this and thank you for that. But then, do you ask yourself the question, do I respect who I am? Do I truly honor myself? Do I honor my personhood? Can I look at it in a positive way? Or do I constantly, even though people might tell me there's a lot of good things about me, do I still put myself down, look at myself negatively, and negate stuff that people tell me? I'm such a firm believer, strong believer, that other people see in us what we can't see in ourselves. Because we are too tough on ourselves. We're hard on ourselves. And we have a tendency very many times to put ourselves down. And that's why it's so important to open up our hearts, open up our minds. And we do that by respecting the person that we are. And once again, it's the same concept. If I don't respect myself and honor who I am, how can I respect somebody else? I can't give away what I don't have. And that's really important. That goes for love, like, respect, all these things. And the fourth question is, spiritually, do I care about myself? Do I take care of myself as a person? Do I honor and respect and care for my body? Do I honor and care and respect for my spirit? Do I do things to help me? Do I take time to sleep? Do I take time to nurture myself? Do I take time to learn? Do I take time to grow? Do I take time for these things in my life? So many times in life we have a tendency not to take care of ourselves. Oh, it's a lot more fun to take care of everybody else. That's fun, by the way. I can spend my whole entire life running around taking care of somebody else. But do you stop and look in the mirror? Do you take care of your physical self? Do you take care of your emotional self? Do you take care of your spiritual self? Do you have a life? Are you able to open up doors and do things in different directions with your life? Do you see the beauty inside of yourself as an individual? These are all spiritual questions. And with the spiritual questions come what I call the 5 spiritual principles. Here's the problem, though. The 5 spiritual principles are simple. They're not complicated. And yet, we're the ones who are complicated. What do? I would joke about this. I says, sometimes we complicate going to the bathroom. We have to analyze everything. Got to figure everything out. Make ourselves half crazy and half nuts. But the bottom line is, we have to realize how important it is. So I'm going to give you 5 simple questions. The 5 simple principles. I already gave you the questions. And the 5 simple principles come down to this. Now, I hate to do this to you, but they are simple. They're not complicated. And that's why sometimes we'll have a hard time getting them. The first simple principle is, it involves simple little words. One day at a time. They call that ODOT. One day at a time. We have to learn something which is so important. We have to learn how to live life one day at a time. We get stuck on our path so many times. Whatever path you took, whatever you experienced, was what you were supposed to experience. Here I go again with my 4 spiritual words. 2 of my great spiritual words are supposed to. Each one of us went on a path. And that path, they're all teachable moments on that path. And some of the paths we went on Maybe we screwed up a lot, made a lot of mistakes, did some crazy stuff. But for some reason, we had to go on that path to learn something about it. We have to learn how to live our lives one day at a time, to live in the present, to learn from the past and grow from it, to grow from the paths we chose. Then hopefully, as we get healthier, we can move forward and go in different paths. And so the concept is, it's the whole process that we're going through. What's so beautiful about that concept of one day at a time is we only have one day. Do any of us know about tomorrow? No, we don't. Things happen in very many different ways. On a personal level, I'll share something with you. New Year's Eve, my wife and I went down to pick up her sister, who's in a group home. We took her out for lunch, then we took her different places. Then we brought her back around 3 o'clock. And hugs, kisses, the whole bit. Went home, and my wife and I, we don't do New Year's Eve, so we went to bed around 8:30, 9 o'clock. 5 o'clock in the morning, the phone rang. They had just rushed her to the hospital, her sister in the group home. She was having major seizures. She has epilepsy and a bunch of other things too. She's mentally challenged. And so basically now we're finding out that she's in ICU and probably not going to be making it. That's why I asked for prayers in the beginning. But how can you be with somebody one day and the next day, look where they are? That's a good example because we don't know about tomorrow. All we know about is the moment. And that's why sometimes we have to take and celebrate and honor each moment of our life. Life is precious and it's beautiful. And we all need each other. We learn from each other. And yes, we're going to make mistakes. Thank God. Mistakes are part of the journey. My father used to say, the old saying, you're never going to learn how to get up till you fall down. So falling down is part of life. Getting up is part of life. Learning is part of life, growing. But we do it one day at a time. And so for today, just keep it simple. My early sponsor used to say to me all the time, his famous words were, if you learn that much today, you have made progress. I used to joke with him and say, how about that much? He'd grab my 2 fingers and go, that's enough. That's enough. A little bit here, a little bit there. Learn something new today, one little thing, and just enjoy the day. I loved him. Beautiful man. You learn so much from people around you. So we have to learn to live one day at a time. I never truly understood this till I was going to AA meetings down in South Philadelphia. And some of the old timers used to say this. They used to say, people get up and they say, I got 50 years, I got 40 years, I got 30 years. And I'll never forget one of the guys there, and they used to say to him, how much time do you have? And, they knew what he was going to say ahead of time. We used to joke and say he probably had, 400 years of recovery, who the hell knows? But he'd say, let me think for a minute, he'd say. My recovery started at 4:30 this morning. And guess what? I only have today. And that's enough. If I happen to wake up tomorrow, I'll have another day. And that's enough for me. And so I used to get a kick out of him because when he had those countdowns, they'd ask him how much time he had. He'd say, one day. We're all equal. Nobody's any different. We all got one day. The second spiritual principle, very simple, 3 letters, PPT, persons, places, and things. Is learning how to set boundaries. We're going to experience different things in the course of our life. We're going to have some people that are tremendous, beautiful teachers for us. We're going to have some people that are going to hurt us and maybe go through changes, but guess what? They're also teachers. We can learn from pain. We can learn from struggle. We can learn from growth. It's all part of it. Yes, over the course of the journey of life, you're going to experience some people that may even hurt you. You're going to experience struggle. You're also going to experience people that will help you and guide you and be part of you, be with you on the journey. There'll be different situations that will occur. That we can learn beautiful, positive lessons from it. But again, am I open to it? Am I open to listen? Am I open to learn? Am I open to the messengers? Everything that happens in your life, no matter what it is, here's the two spiritual words again. It was supposed to happen. Now, am I going to spend the rest of my life beating myself up? Or am I open to learn and grow from all experiences, the things we've gone through? It took me a long time to really begin to work on this and realize the fact, I really believe I probably picked my parents because they're two of my first teachers. Were they dysfunctional? They won awards. What can I tell you? But the bottom line was, I won awards too. We all did. Because we have some dysfunctionality and we have some good stuff. We have a mixture of a lot of stuff in us. But it's all about learning and growing, realizing different situations. I can't believe I'm going to say this. When I was in Italian Catholic grammar school, I had some ladies that were called nuns. I actually called them DI sergeants in the Marines. But basically, they were pretty tough, really tough. I used to go to school scared to death every day. But you know what? I look back on that today and I say, you know what? I didn't turn out too bad. Maybe I needed some of that structure, that discipline, that order. Maybe I wasn't ready to hear it. But it's all part of it. So I tried to the best of my ability. Do I like some of the stuff they did? No. Should I learn from it? Yes. No matter what happened in life, you can learn something from it. The third spiritual principle is one we're all familiar with, HP, higher power. Now, I have a simple definition of higher power. It's simple. I call it joining the higher power club, the 4H club. And there are four different powers. I have to come believe that I have the power to become honest to the best of my ability. You will never become totally honest because we're human. To be as honest as I can be for this day, where I'm at in my life today. Hopefully tomorrow, maybe I'll be a little bit more honest. Who knows? But we have to work on this honest power. It's part of our higher power. To be open. The second H is humility. To have a sense of humility. To have a sense of openness. To have a sense of wonder. To have a sense of growth. The third H is humor. Can I actually laugh at myself? I can't believe some of the things I did in my life. In fact, I joke about it today. My wife even says to me, if I had known you back then, I probably would not come near you. I said, thanks. Well, you know what? When I read my life story, when I wrote it, I wrote a book called My Spiritual Journey. I don't believe half the things I did. I look back on them and I say, did I do that? I did. And the bottom line is, it's part of the journey, it's part of the path, part of the learning, part of the growth process to go through. And we all have stories. We got our stories. We have our things. Some of the crazy stuff that we did. Look back on and say, wow. And yet at the same time, it was another teachable moment. And the last H is healing. No matter what happens in life, you can always heal. Make peace with it. Make settlement with it. Go through a healing process. I really believe that different circumstances, different situations take us on different levels on our path. When I did my diagram on my path when I was doing my spiritual work, I found it really interesting. I got ordained in 1966. I was 26 years old. And I wanted to, of course, I was young. I wanted to save the world. So I wanted the bishop to send me to either Camden or Atlantic City or one of the cities so I could actually, take care of everybody. I was excited. But he didn't listen to me. He actually sent me to a parish in Vineland called St. Isidore. I says, why? I volunteered for all the bad stuff. He said, that's where you go. But now I know God takes us on a path. I went to St. Isidore, found out the pastor was an alcoholic, a really tough one too, and ended up running a parish. 26-year-old, I'm running a parish. I was stressed out. I was insane. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I did it anyway. But maybe I learned something from it because later on I ran Starting Point. Probably the same way I ran that parish. I didn't know what I was doing either. But I got it done. It's amazing. Loretta says that to me. How the heck did you do this for 38 years? I says, I don't know. I just did it. It's amazing when you come down what you got to do when you have to do it. It's just amazing. At the same time, I realize now, as a result of his alcoholism, I went to my first 12-step meeting, which was Al-Anon. And from Al-Anon, I basically ended up dealing with my own addiction. I went to AA. From AA, later on, I went to OA. From OA to EDA. And guess what? Someday I got to thank that bishop. He didn't send me to that parish. Would I be here talking to you today? I don't know. But God had a path. He set me on the path. And even that priest I lived with, who was obnoxious and crazy, I was so angry at him because they didn't even welcome me. I introduced myself to the whole entire parish. The bottom line was, I found out later on, he did get into recovery. He called me in 2014. We got together, he made amends to me. I made amends to him. We worked it out. Unfortunately, he died the next year from cirrhosis. Because when he got into recovery, his liver was just about gone. But at least he died in recovery. So you never know where the path is going to take you. And that's why we have to heal, learn from the path. That's why I use the 4-H Club, the 4 higher powers. Try to be as honest as you can be. Have a sense of humility to learn and grow. Have a sense of humor to look back on life and realize, how did I come through that? Why am I still alive? Why am I still here? We all got a story, come on. They're all good stories. And every one of us, I'm sure, at one time said, did I really do that? Yeah, you did. It's all part of it. We have to heal. We have to forgive. So the 4th spiritual principle is 3 simple words. Letters, I mean. G-O-D. God. I love the simple definition in recovery of God. Good, orderly direction. And as the old timers put it, shut up and listen. Be open to learn, be open to grow. We need structure, we need direction in our life, we need guidance. Don't try to do it by yourself. Don't be your own doctor. We need each other, we need people, we learn, we grow from one another. We get direction from each other, we learn from our mistakes, from things that happen. I've said this so many times. The greatest library on the face of this earth is the human library. Because every time I hear somebody's story, it helps me on my journey. And I can learn something from everybody I meet in the course of my journey. Because we're all teachers and we're all pupils at the same time. It's part of who we are, part of our growth process. I have to learn good, orderly direction. It's ironical. Let me tell you a story. I'll throw a little story in here, Dot. I hope you don't mind. But basically, because Lisa's waiting for the story, so I got to tell her. But anyway, I used to be connected to that rehab in Northeast Philly called Riverside House. And there was a gentleman there named Joe P. who ran the rehab. And I really don't think he ran a rehab, he ran boot camp. It was amazing. You went into that rehab for 28 days. You were not allowed any contact with the outside world for 28 straight days. There were no cell phones, that kind of stuff. You make a phone call to your family, you made it in the counselor's office with the counselor listening to your phone call. You got up in the morning, they played the 24-hour book over the loudspeaker to wake you up. You went down to breakfast, you ate in silence while they read from the big book. At lunchtime, they read from Living Sober. At supper time, they read from other recovery books. In short, for 28 straight days, they brainwashed you into recovery. You had nothing but recovery, 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 recovery till it was coming out your ears. But you know what? I'll never forget. That rehab has such a powerful reputation because over 60% of the people at that rehab stayed sober. Good, orderly direction, structure, guidance. I'm learning in my own life that if I have a way of life, a schedule, I have format, things work so much better. People laugh at me, I know. They don't really laugh. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Why? Well, first, I like getting up in the morning, but anyway, I make time every morning for prayer, for meditation. I make time to be able to fill my soul, to put stuff inside. That was drilled into me by the old timers. You start your day on your knees, you start in prayer, you start in meditation, and now I have a lot of fun because I post something on Facebook every day from my meditation for the day. I get to meet a lot of people in recovery and get connected that way. That's the fun part about it. And then when I'm all done everything, I go to the gym, take care of my body, and have some fun. So I'm learning the importance of making time, making some structure, some direction in your life. And what I find is that good orderly direction does work. That's where I really think we find our connection to our higher power. And that's why I see the gift that we have on the inside. And the last simple principle is a 3-letter word that may strike fear into the hearts of many. The word is S-I-N, sin. I hate to tell you this, but if you're in recovery, there's only one sin you can commit. The rest don't count. See, we don't call them sins, we call them character defects. And good God, that we have character defects. Welcome to the club. There's only one sin you can commit, and that is never give up. Keep coming back, keep trying. One day at a time, that's all. I'm going to close out this section before I do my prayer by telling you a story. This is my favorite story, and I probably have told it 1,500 times. I hope I can tell it to the day I die. When I was a priest in Atlantic City, I met a gentleman there. His name was Leroy. And Leroy was one of these guys who had a hard time staying in recovery. He lived in a very bad spot in Atlantic City, at North Carolina and Baltic Avenue, not a nice place to live. Anyway, he would come to meetings and beg and beg and beg and try to stay sober. Out again, back in again, out again, back in again, out again, back in again. Rehabs, everything. He fought this disease like crazy, this disease of addiction. And one day we found him dead in his apartment. He died from this disease. A few of us in recovery got together. We went to the local cemetery and we buried him. I did a prayer service, his funeral. And we have a little tombstone there that we chipped in and bought. And all it says is, Leroy sober today. That's all the tombstone reads. You see, he never gave up and he gave his best shot. That's all we can do. There's no guarantees for anything in life. All we can do is take care of today. I love talking about these principles and these concepts because they're simple principles to live by. Do the best you can for today. That's enough. Celebrate who you are as a person and be in touch with it. Because every one of us is unique. Every one of us is special. Every one of us is connected. And so I wanted to talk about spirituality today because your spirit is who you are. It's your uniqueness. It's your specialness. Stay in touch with it. And just learn to celebrate life and enjoy life. But above all, don't be afraid to share yourself with others. Because when you share, you get back. It's totally amazing how it works. Isn't that amazing? I love that. So I learned from every person I've ever met in the course of my life. And that's all that counts. You know, I even learned from Loretta, not a problem at all. It's unbelievable. You know, it makes me nuts sometimes, but I still learn from her. You know, there's a good part about life and laugh. You gotta learn to laugh a little bit and enjoy it, okay? You're only here once. It's enough. It is enough, I know that. So you have to just take it a day at a time and see what happens. So my prayer today is that we open our spirit up, our heart up, and we allow the gift of who we are to come out to others. Let us pray. God, we come before you in prayer. We ask the God of our understanding, our divine presence, to guide us, be with us, and help us as we walk the journey of life, the path of life together. Help us to be able to learn and grow from all the different things that happen on that path. Each one of us is on a journey from you and back to you, a journey where we learn and grow, a journey to make mistakes, a journey to learn from them and grow from them, a journey to discover the spirit and the uniqueness of each and every one of us, to be open to our uniqueness, to be open to our specialness, to be open to the journey. And so I ask the God of understanding to guide us, to be with us, and help us to be honest, open, help us to be able to look at life through the eyes in a positive way of healing and growing, to realize how special and beautiful we are. So we come here in gratitude for the gift of today, in gratitude for the gift of life, in gratitude for so many things. And we ask you to bless and guide us on the journey of life, the path. Help us to walk it in strength, to walk it in humility and growth. We pray this and we ask this every day, and we pray it in your name. Amen.